This episode is brought to you by Folkers Wrestling, Southern Iowa's premier youth wrestling club. Led by one of Iowa's most decorated AAU wrestlers, Folkers Wrestling isn't just about building champions on the mat, it's about keeping kids excited about the sport for the long haul. With lessons shaped by real experiences, they know the right way to push young athletes without burning them out. Whether your child's just starting out or chasing a state title, Folkers Wrestling is a place to grow. Learn more and get signed up today.
Get framed at Main Street Frame in Albia, now near the southwest corner of the historic Albia Square. Your memories get framed and can be printed at Main Street Frame. Your pictures could be waiting on your phone or waiting in storage boxes. Bring those memories to life with Main Street Frame. They print on photo paper or canvas. And of course, they have a wide variety of frames to choose from and custom sizes. What else would you like to frame? Get it framed at Main Street Frame. You name it, we can frame it. A completely creative way to honor your life. Main Street Frame in Albia.
Welcome back to Life, Death, and Everything in Between. We're going to mix it up today. We're going to go unfuneral related. We're going to talk sports. What Brian and I often catch ourselves doing when we're not working the death care industry is we're generally talking sports. And usually we're arguing what generation was the best at sports in Albia. So we got to thinking, why not do a podcast? As we were talking about this, we was like, we really need to have somebody else come in that knows the history of Albia sports. And Brian had a great idea. So Brian, why don't you introduce our guest today?
Well, today we have Dave Paxton, a fellow UNI alumnus and the publisher and editor of the Albia newspaper from 1982 to 2023. Welcome, Dave.
Thanks, Brian.
So Dave, I think we're going to just kind of work through Albia sports.
That'd be great.
Full disclaimer, though, so Dave came in the 80s. We are going to try to touch base on some of the older history of Albia sports that he has found and can remember. But it's going to be mainly concentrating on the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. So I know you 76ers are going to throw a fit because I know you guys think you're the best, and we know you are good. But we may not be able to talk about you so much today, but we will get you sometime. And when we see you at the golf course or stuff, you can tell us how we're wrong, and that'll be completely just fine. So, but let's start with track. Would that be all right?
Sure.
All right.
Sure.
So what can you tell us about?
Well, I would say you've got, and I didn't get to see this guy run, but Dan Waters, a little guy, won a state title in the 1600 meters. 1600 meters would have been in your era, Brian, right?
I think Danny graduated in 82, so I think it was 1982 when he won the title.
Yeah, and so he was a great run. Went on to Iowa and was, I think, all Big Ten. He was the real deal. And then, of course, you've got 88, 89, you got Stacy Detar, who was a cross-country champion. He's our only cross-country champion, but he qualified for state numerous times in 800 and 1500 or 1600. Girls run the 1500, 3,200-meter runs. So those right off the top. You've got, holy mackerel, Nick Sedaris, who I'll never forget, ran against the great Adam Haluska, who is your cousin, right, Brian?
My nephew.
Nephew.
Yep.
Nephew, okay. At state, when Adam set records that I don't know if they'll ever be broken in the 100-meter dash, and Nick was a terrific runner. That would have been
2001. That was when I was in high school. Nick, and I remember Nick kind of came out of nowhere that year. Mm-hmm. I mean, he had a good football season that year. That's when we kind of first noticed he was fast. But I swear, like it just seemed like his speed came in 1 year, and he was a senior that 2001 year, and he did end up having a great season. And actually, I didn't realize how great of a season Adam had until about a month ago or so. They had a article in the Des Moines Register that I sent to you, and realized he had won like 4 individual state titles his senior year, which had been 2002 for Adam.
Well, you had to have been there. And I was standing on the infield when he beat everybody by 10, meters. I mean, he was. It was unbelievable and the field was fast. Nick Sedaris was fast, but it was.
Plus, he was 6'5".
Well, you know, Adam played some sports in Albia. Too bad we couldn't have
Right.
kept him here.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
But when he was a kid, he did play some little league or minor league baseball here in Albia.
Come back and spend a summer at Grandma and Grandpa's.
Yeah.
Another track team that I remember would have been Matt Casebolt. It would have been John Casebolt. Coach Casebolt had the track team. They called him the Dirty Dozen. There were 12 guys on the team, and they went to state and scored a bunch of points. And I'm thinking it was Matt and I think the Buckingham boys were on that team. Craig's
Sure.
sons, they were on that team, and Joel Pendergrass was the weight guy, and I can't remember some of the other ones, but that was a great team. And then the incredible thing about track, both boys and girls, we had Tanya Tweet would have been one of our first superstar females. She was a high jumper and went to state, but we didn't have a track.
Yep.
And you know, to have a quality track team without a track is pretty impressive. And of course Brian here, he threw the discus in the shot, and I think you still own the shot put record.
Yes.
Yeah, I think your discus record got wiped out.
No, I never did throw the discus.
You didn't throw the discus.
Nope, I just,
Okay, well that's good because Bobby Scott broke it, and then Kieran Judge has it now. I think the discus record, but probably then, gosh, I mean individually there were some really good female athletes.
Sarah Wynn she had some good years in there.
Yeah.
Cross country more.
Yeah, cross country and track.
Yeah, right,
Terrific.
yeah.
And of course Jordan Winkie, who
Yeah,
ran
more
at
recently,
Iowa.
Yeah.
And she was a great female runner. My daughter Katie was a discus thrower and finished 6th at Drake and 4th at State. That was a good team in like 2003, something like that. But then you get into the Todd Ratliff and the Darren Hill era, and oh my gosh, I mean they were from 2000. I don't know.
I want to say Todd might have came here in like 2000 or 2001, somewhere in that time frame.
And he developed one of the state's best cross-country programs. But then we built the track. I can't remember what year that was, but we got the track built, and it just took off. And, I mean, for a while, we owned the 4x400, winning state titles and Drake Relays titles, and finished, I think we finished 2nd or 3rd, 5th in the state different times. So that was a great era, and it still goes on. We brought home 11 medals this year from state and Dan, not Dan, the little
Oh my gosh.
gosh, I can't believe I can't. Ryan.
Yes.
Ryan Little
Yep.
finished 2nd twice in the high jumps at 6'10",
that's a pretty good
Yeah.
jump.
big time jumping. Yeah. So.
Yeah, we definitely had some success in track and
For
cross
sure.
country.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
let's move to soccer. We haven't had for
Well,
it's been quite a while now if you think about it. So
2000, I think
Gravert started
Gary
that
Gravert
program?
started the program in, I gotta think, 2001 or 2 maybe. Yep. And first couple years, they weren't very successful, and then they just turned the corner. And I think he finished with 120 some coaching wins, maybe 130, 2 state tournament appearances, half dozen all-staters on that team, and they're probably the zenith, and I think we're going to talk about this, the best all-around groups, and it would have been in that 2010 to 2016 era where they were in state a couple times, and they had some really, really fine athletes.
Absolutely, yes.
Brady Anderson, Derek Rockwell, Jordan Kroll was an all-state goalie.
Did the girls and boys start soccer at the same time?
The girls didn't play soccer. They finally let girls play on the soccer team, and Matt Johnson's sister Katie was probably the best of the female soccer players who got to play with the guys. But then just 3 years ago, they they put together a girls program. And the first year, my granddaughter got to play on that team. Just lost one, but they didn't have an official season, and they lost one. And then the next season, they were really good, and they were really good this year. So the girls have just been playing together for like 3 years.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
But yeah, Coach Gravert started that program, and I mean, he kind of had to. You look at it, he put Southern Iowa, South Central Iowa on the map in terms of soccer. So yeah. Yeah.
Now we're going to move to golf.
You guys probably know more about you because you're golfers, but
Well, I don't know. I don't know if you can say that. We're more
I'm
hackers.
you go back to 1938, 39, and this name means nothing to most people, but shoot, now I can't remember his name. Bob. Oh, darn it. Anyway, Lauren Hardinger was a Hall of Fame Albia guy. They all went to World War II, but they were at state in what they thought, what state was back then. But then in 1954, I think was the first year our team made it to state, and that was with Sonny Williams and a guy named Tom Roan, and then Bill Feehan, who is Ellen Madison's brother, and went on to have, I think, a fairly successful professional career. Played a lot of golf, and Jim Bates, the late Dr. Jim Bates, was on that team, and of course then his kids matriculated into golf, and and then you had the Bates brothers. Tremendous golfers.
I would imagine. Do you remember? I would think Jim Campbell probably, because he was so good as an adult that he never talks about it because he's just a humble guy. But I feel like
I don't find a lot of stuff about him in high school. But then he went to Vietnam, got wounded, got shot up, came back, and then he just kind of bursts onto the scene. I don't know how many times he won the city championship. He's still a great golfer.
Yes, he is.
Then on the girls' side, Gina Dellavedova was, of course, a state champion in 88, 89 in that era.
I remember her dad. He told me what he did with her one year was, so if you go a hole 6, it's a big hill. So he said, and he said he did not like it. She did not like doing this, but he would just make her. They'd get on that hill, and she just hit shot after shot off that hill. I don't know why or what that does for you, but he said it was just that was a big help for getting her good at golf. So,
and of course, Gina was a great softball pitcher too. But then you get into well, Mary Souter was our girls' coach for years, and I don't know how many conference titles, excuse me, she had, but a lot. And Jenna Dewey, of course, Mike Dewey was a tremendous golfer in the 70s, and Jenna. We all say that she could have been our second female title winner, but she
got injured.
There's a bench collapsed, and she got her knee underneath it and sprained her knee, didn't get to compete at state. But she was a terrific athlete. And then Marty Hermsen, his area, he's still our golf coach, and he's just had success all the time. Yep. So.
And I tell you, we've got there's some good stuff going on in Albia right now with golf. Kevin and Cynthia Hallmeyer, which actually the Deweys kind of started this youth program, I believe, and then now Kevin and Cynthia have really taken it over, and they get kids of all ages. And I think there's like 60 or 70 kids that
and they're playing right now in that heat. I know.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot of kids.
So yeah, there's a lot of kids getting involved with golf. So we definitely need to give the Hallmeyers a shout out for that.
Yeah.
So.
And we had the Kipfer girl was at state this year.
Yep, that'd be my niece. So yep, she made state this year. But she's only a junior, so she'll have one more year.
And she is a heck of a girls basketball player, by the way. Yeah.
And she hasn't golfed for that long, so it's kind of. She works hard at it, but it came a little bit natural to her also.
Well, I think one of the things everybody I talk to, of course, we have the Albia Pro-Am here, and everybody says it's one of the toughest golf courses in the state.
Yep.
And so our kids they struggle when they get a flatlands golf course.
Right.
So, but yeah, great golfing program here.
Now we're going to move to volleyball.
volleyball, our last conference championship, what did we figure that, Brian? 1980 or 82?
It'd been the early 80s.
Who's with Gladys Kraber, who is now Gladys Jenskow. Pat Pendergrass was the coach. And we have had the misfortune of playing behind legendary programs in Knoxville, Davis County, and then Eddyville, Blakesburg. And, of course, Gladys went to coach Eddyville, and they've been, I don't know how many times they've been to the state. I don't know how many conference titles they've had, too numerous to remember. So then the program, so the early 80s was very good, and then the early 2000s was really good with, I can't remember
Erica
who the
Rockwell
coaches
would have been
was.
on that team.
Erica Rockwell, my daughter Katie was
daughter
on
would have
that
been on that
team. Sarah Gravert, and Kathy Scott was a tremendous volleyball
She would
player.
have been a little bit younger, but
She would have been a freshman, sophomore, and these kids were seniors. And then, really, probably the most success we've had is just recently with Missy Dustin Cox as our coach, and her daughter Hannah was a great player. And then Griffin, Abby Griffin, who is now coach at Sheraton, much to our terrible disappointment.
Can't
But
be letting that
she's
happen.
no. And Alex Baird was an all-state setter, and so that's kind of where volleyball has been.
Sure. It's going to take us into basketball.
Well, basketball, we've had unparalleled success with Coach Archer on the boys' side. I was looking, I think in his 20, how many years did he coach? 20.
He would have came when I was in high school again, so he would have been here in 2002, I believe, would have been his first season.
23 years of coaching.
Yep.
I think he had one losing season.
Wow.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, got to state twice. Should have gotten to state probably 4 times, but and then sub-state finals numerous times. I think he won 5 maybe conference titles, and had some tremendous players. You go back. Well, if you go back into, let's go back into the 80s. Actually, that's Brian's era.
Right.
That's when you were on the bench the whole time, weren't you, Brian?
Yeah, right. Yeah. The legendary Brian Baker, who almost got thrown out of junior high because he brought the bangboard down. Tom Lee was a great coach, and then went on to Des Moines and had tremendous success up there too. But you can speak to the 80 to 85.
Yeah,
Great basketball.
82, we tied for the conference title with Davis County Bloomfield, and they went ahead and they went to state and got third. We got beat out in sub-state semifinal by Pella, 30-29, and we'd beaten Davis County twice that year. And then a few years after that, in 85, they had a really good team. With
Dan and Norm Stocker and
Mark Hugan,
Mark Hugan.
Tim Nolan, Jeff Knupp.
Yep. And so they just Point got beat by Winterset in the sub-state final, I think.
Right.
I think did that game go overtime? I can't remember.
I'm not sure, but it was a tight one back and forth.
That year we beat Pella and Pella Christian, I think a total of 3 times, and we got the district final in Albia, and of course in the old B gym, which was like an ice skating rink, and the noise was just incredible, and we beat them. I think it was Pella Christian, and they were up in the balcony, and they tore down the ceiling. They were not happy. So Doug Tutkin then had some nice teams, and then we fell into just complete disarray in about 1986, and it was tough going for 5-6 years. And then Kurt Grimm came as our coach in 91, 92, and of course he had Jim Beaumont, who was the last great big guy was in your era, or maybe a little.
We had Wayne Williams, who was 6'9", lefty. He was a good baller.
Yeah, and Jim Beaumont came along and kind of turned the program around, and then we had a coach named Tim Skirring, who was just here maybe a year or two, went on to coach college basketball, and he had what I think is maybe one of our best teams ever, and they finished second in the conference. Chris Clark and Nick Griffin.
Ryan Wilson.
Ryan.
Is that 93-ish then? Or what year?
94, 5 in there.
Okay.
90, I think 95.
So Ryan
Yeah.
scored, I believe, 43 points in a game, broke Kelly Garrett's record at the time,
Yeah.
which has since been broken.
Yeah, they
I
were.
can remember being a kid kind of watching Griffin in that group. And
They were good. They shot. Chris Clark was a 6'4" guard. You know, that was unheard of back then, and it shot 3-pointers all the time. Nick was super quick, and then of course Ryan is just. If he got the ball inside, it was, and he's not all that tall, 6'3", 6'4".
He's 6'5".
He's 6'5".
Ryan's
Okay.
6'5".
see,
Yeah,
there
so
was
it
a
was-
class in the 90s too that always shocked me because I don't think they ever won any. I mean, their conference, but I think they were in a very tough conference, and I think it was like right around 98. But they had a lot of height, and like Tyler Selby was on that team, Eric Hamilton, he was tall as can
6'6",
be,
6'8".
and Danny Rockwell. So I mean, they had
6'3",
a
yeah.
lot of talent, but I just feel like they were stacked.
Yeah,
in the
it was
conference that year.
that was probably one of the great disappointing years. And they had 2 juniors. They had a Sheehan kid. He was 6'6", and then Ryan Sextro. He was
Right, yep, he was
Colonel Ryan Sextro now. He's but yeah, those were good teams. And then Archer came along, and gosh, Matt Baker. He's the all-time scorer, 5'8" guard, all-time leading scorer. Made it to state twice. Kenny Williams, who works at First Iowa State
So
Bank.
would that be a son of the Williams you were talking about, or
No,
Kenny
that's the
would-
Heitman Williams clan.
okay? Yeah.
Well,
okay.
that would be Wayne's boy, I believe. Kenny is either.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, it is.
Oh,
Yep. And then Kenny and there was another really
Simpson
lanky.
could-
Oh,
there's a-
Jordan
Yeah,
Simpson,
he would have been on that team.
Dog Simpson.
Yep.
And that was a fantastic thing. He got beat sub-state finals against Mid Prairie Wellman, and then you come into the last few years, and you had the Chance boys, 3 Chance brothers who were right. I mean, they're all 1,000-point scorers. The little one, the youngest one, Gage, he still has 2 years left,
Yeah,
and
wow. Incredible.
he might. He would have a chance to break Matt Baker's scoring record, but so yeah. And then in terms of girls, it's been a long, hard row for girls. The first good 5-on-5 teams probably were 2002 and 2003. Again, my daughter Katie she would have been a 1,000-point scorer, but she broke her ankle after the first game of the season and was out for 4 weeks and came back, and that was a great team with Erica Rockwell and Kathy Scott. Matt Elliott was the coach then. And then Coach Achenbach didn't have a lot of wins and losses. He established a program. He came back in, I think, like 2008 and 9, and then had 2 conference championship teams. Really some fine players on that team, on those teams. And then this last year, we were 17-6 and had the second best record in school history. So with my daughter as the coach, but the what's the next one? We got baseball and softball, basketball. Takes a hit. You got to play in the summer. You just have to. And softball has dominated the summer.
Yep.
And volleyball too. And so we've got girls a pretty good summer shooting program now.
So is there some young talent coming up that you think they'll be pretty
Yeah,
good?
we got a 6'2", Claire Powers, 6'2".
Okay, right.
She'll be a junior center. We might have the best guard court I can ever remember in Lily DeMoss will be a senior, and then Aaliyah Hood, who is just a tiny kid, but she's from the Kegel clan.
Yeah, sure.
La Villa.
Oh boy,
Lavilla
and
girl.
she
Hey,
is.
we
She's
gotta get that Lavilla connection in there.
She's
don't we?
playing center field right now, and she won a medal at track, and she runs cross country as well. She's a great basketball player, left-handed, so those 2 kids, Kipfer, what's her first name?
Emma.
Yeah,
Yep.
she'll be there. Aaliyah Green is a 5'11" forward, and then there's a couple. I won't name them because I don't put any pressure on them, but there's a couple of 8th graders coming up that are going to be good. So yeah, I
Nice.
think they'll.
Good.
And I think our boys pro, we have a new coach, and Kevin did not leave the cupboard bare. Their people are going to really be surprised at how good the basketball team will be this year. So,
Good deal. Yeah.
but
So we're going to move along to baseball.
baseball has, of course, Skinny Sailor started baseball in 1965, 60. We had a 50-year anniversary for him before he died.
I remember that.
And, of course, he had the great Kelly Garrett was probably maybe one of his best players. Jim Wynn was a great player in the 70s. In the 80s, I don't remember a lot of baseball in the 80s.
Bill Saylor retired, I believe, would have been after my sophomore year, and then Paul Thompson briefly took over, and then Doug Tukin, and I don't know who took
and
over
then
after that.
well, it was Kurt Grimm took over, and he had wildly successful teams, 30-win teams. One of the best teams, I think it was 92 maybe. Kyle Wilson and Mark Hopkins were the pitchers on that team, got to sub-state finals. And then that period of time, great athletes from like 92 to 95, 91 or 95. And you had, I don't know what year Matt Chance graduated. It would have been
94, 95, around
Because
there.
Mitch would have been 95.
Oh,
so
Mitch.
So Matt would have been a little
92 maybe, 93,
Yeah.
somewhere in there.
So the Chance brothers played on those. Jay Curran, oh my gosh,
Yeah,
Great
90,
athlete.
he was a
95, yeah.
wonderful shortstop, and he played on one leg his senior year. He needed ACL surgery, and he played anyway. So that was just a great era of baseball. And then a couple of coaching changes, and then Boyd Britton took over the program. And Boyd coached, I think, for 20-some years with Jim Cagle. And they got us to state in 2002 and again in 2013, I think. And gosh, too many great players to even name.
Wasn't Jim Wynn a baseball coach
Jim
at one
coached
point?
baseball. Yep.
Yeah.
mhm. Yep. I think he coached before Kurt Grimm did.
Okay.
And baseball has never been bad here, but you talk about some teams with 30-win seasons and stuff. And Boyd won several conference titles, and so now they're rebuilding now. Brad DeMoss is their coach, and they've got some really nice players this year. Softball has been good since it started, really. Back when Janny Dorpinghouse, who became a state champion coach for us, played in the late 70s. The first great teams were probably...
They won a state title in the 70s? Is that what you just said?
No. She played in the 70s.
Okay.
She was a really good player in the 70s, and then she became our
Sure,
coach.
yeah.
Yeah.
I believe my sister Kim might have been on one of the first teams that started Albia softball in the early 70s.
Yeah, that'd
Pretty sure.
be about right. But Linda Hoskins took over as coach, and they won, I think, 3 conference titles. And again, it was Gladys Kraber, Jen Skow, and Donna Flav, and Madison, Donna Madison, and who's their other? They had another.
Barb Sinnott was a very good
Barb Sinnott was a
athlete.
fabulous player. So that era, like 82 to 85, they dominated the South Central Conference. Missed state. I think they got to the sub-state finals a couple of times. Then we had just good softball, but we had terrible luck with pitchers getting hurt. And then Larry Achenbach came in 1999, and it took him a year. They were 15 and 25 his first season, and then he never. Let's see. He had 25 wins and over for the next forever.
There was a stretch there that, I mean,
It's just-
and everybody went to the games because we were just loaded.
Yeah.
I mean, we had so many all-state players there from the early 2000s for, I mean, probably a good 5-6 year
2008,
stretch.
9, when he retired, and then Mitch Chance took it over, had great success, and then Darren Hill came in with Janny, and Janny was Larry's longtime assistant, And then, of course, they made it to state 4 years in a row. I think I was counting up. Larry took them twice, and then they had 4 straight, and then they missed a year. And so we're probably 8, 9 state tournament appearances, numerous conference championships. And today they're sitting 19-0, and
This is incredible.
just have a great team. So
And maybe kind of when you look, like we've had some teams that I feel like that everyone talked about before the season started. I think everyone knew that we were going to be good this year, but I don't feel like we had all that hype, before the season started.
no, they were totally under the radar.
Which is
because
just
they
incredible.
struggled last year. They had a 19-18 record, I think, last year. But you had to go to the games to watch it because they were losing. Most of their losses were like 1 and 2 runs. Just with a new pitcher. Grace Pence was our pitcher for the first time last year, and she's just dominant this year.
What year is she?
Junior.
Okay.
She's got 2 years. She got this year and next year left.
Oh,
I
wow.
think.
Great.
Yeah, and then there's another girl coming up behind her, a Pearson girl, who is almost as good.
Wow.
So yeah,
We've always produced some good pitchers in Albia when it comes to softball.
great. I say it's great pitching, but we're a kind of center field U here. We've had numerous all-state center fielders, and so we're going to have another one this year, I think. So
So that'll take us to wrestling.
wrestling, of course. Charles Morden, Chief Morden, started the program and coached it for a long time. And then Jerry Mason was a long-time coach into the 80s. And then and probably the first great period of Albia wrestling, again, was when you were in high school.
Right.
And they I think it was the 85 team that had, well, Danny Sinnott, that'd be your cousin.
Yep.
and
Yep.
Larry Kendall and Dave Winger, who is going to make the Hall of Fame, I'm sure, in wrestling, coaching Albia. And
Would Doug Van Polen been on that team?
The year before, they were really good. You had Doug Van Polen,
Yep.
Kevin Garris, and Kenny Ross, the
Yep.
previous people you
the
mentioned.
Folkerts brothers.
Folkerts.
Yeah, right.
They were in
they
there.
were definitely loaded.
Joe Sinclair was
Yep.
He
was a terrific wrestler. They took a ton of guys to state and placed in the state. So, and then you move into wrestling was always good here since then. But you get into in your era, which would have been the late 90s.
Well, even I feel like even in the mid '90s, because I remember just going as a young kid wrestling, going to watch, and there was a stretch there where we had Darren Wallace. Like this is probably '93ish, somewhere in there. Darren Wallace and Mitch Koonsman and Kurt Cosgrove, who got second place at one year.
Jim Angren was a good wrestler in the day.
89,
Jim
Jim,
Angren was
yeah,
real
he got
good.
second, I
well,
think.
and
Right.
Steve,
Yeah.
and Steve would have been on one of the first teams with the Coons kid. Was the first kid to get to state in Albia.
That'd have been back in
75, 6.
Steve
something
Kuhn,
like
and
that.
then Francis Bricker.
Francis
Yeah,
Brick.
yeah.
Steve
Fran-
Bunch was a
Steve-
very
you're
good
right.
wrestler.
Yeah, and Kevin. Kevin was a
Right.
great wrestler. But Francis is so funny. I got my grandson is a basketball player who wrestles, and so he was in the youth program. And Francis helped us with that. Francis could still make weight at 98 pounds or whatever he did. He could still win some matches.
So as a kid, because I wrestled at for Albia as a youth, but then I also went to Oskaloosa, Oskaloosa Wrestling Club. At that time was the best wrestling club around. But it was kind of cool because you get these old timer wrestling tournaments that would go around, and we went and watched. The reason we went and watched is because actually Tyrone Pickerel, Mike Pickerel, he didn't even wrestle when he was young, but he decided he was gonna.
Bet he could have.
Wrestle in this old timers tournament, so we were all going to watch him, and it just so happened that Francis Bricker was there, and he was in the same bracket as my Oskaloosa coach. It was like my two coaches were wrestling each other, and my Oskaloosa coach was a state champion, great wrestler for Sigourney. His last name was Graham. And I remember, so all of us around the mat watching it, and Francis Bricker won that match. So
Oh, I don't doubt it.
It was fun
Yeah.
to watch. So.
Well, you mentioned Pickerel, the name Pickerel.
Yeah.
And that is critically important to Albia wrestling because it it also includes the Leshen clan.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
So, and Kevin Pickerel, in my mind, one of the great all-around athletes.
Sure.
Football, baseball, caught on the great baseball teams. All-American golfer, right? For
Yeah.
St. Ambrose, I
St.
believe.
Ambrose. Receiver on the football team, and then he made it to state.
Yeah, it was kind of unfortunate. He made the state his junior year, and then his senior year, I'm pretty sure he was ranked second all year, undefeated, and ended up getting upset at districts that year. So,
And then, of course, his brother Nick
Right.
comes along, is our first state champion
right,
as a sophomore or junior, maybe.
sophomore.
Was it junior?
Did he get one? He got one in Albia.
He
I
got
think,
one in
and then
Albia and two in Centerville.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
So it must have been sophomore year.
And then Kelly Wolf moved on to Missouri, and Dave Winger took over the program, and you just can't say enough
Right.
good things about that. I don't know what year 2010 maybe,
Yeah, I'd say right around there
2011,
somewhere. Sounds right.
300 dual meet wins in his
that's
career.
That's a short period of time.
You
That's
were
a pretty
looking
good
up some
record.
of
I
the
think he had
stats.
10 conference titles, SEC titles. Just incredible work.
Finished second and third a couple times in
yeah.
the state duels. Third place overall in the regular meet. 5 state champions, 6
Yeah,
state
when
champions.
you look at all the state champions he's had and just place winners, it's incredible numbers.
Yeah, and it's you get Carter Isley and Shadow Leshen and
Bryce Leshen.
Bryce Leshen,
Brett
Brett
Leshen.
Leshen.
Brett.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Osing. Was a
Yeah,
good wrestler.
Osing was, yeah.
Gannon Osing, great Folkerts,
The Melrose boy. My gosh, he placed too. He's
Don't
the
forget
same-
about Aiden Reeves.
Lawless.
Blake Lawless.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
he was and
He was a
Aiden
tough
Aiden
football player, too.
and Aiden
Aiden Reeves. Yeah,
won
you
a
can't
state
talk- yeah, you can't
national.
talk wrestling without
He
Aiden
was a
Reeves.
national champion
This year at
Yeah,
Grandview.
right.
Correct.
Yep.
Yep.
Their new coach Owens, good guy. They're kind of rebuilding right now, but I think it's like they're rebuilding. They finished second in the conference.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, because when you got a good program, that's how you look at it,
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
but
for sure.
And we got some tough competition right now in wrestling because Eddyville's really looking stacked here for a few years.
They are, but and I think my grandson will eventually matriculate into basketball. But they've got some tremendous junior high wrestlers that are with some good clubs, and so they're going to be.
They've got some good wrestlers that got Albia connections too.
That's right. We can still claim
So
that.
we can
can't
still throw that in there.
Well, and then you got to talk about girls wrestling.
Yes.
And man, of course I went to all the junior high meets and got to watch the girls wrestle, and holy smokes, there are some girls that are flat out can wrestle.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
It definitely
I'm
is.
so glad they went. They created
Yeah.
a girls program because it was no fun. If you were a guy and had to wrestle a girl, it was no fun.
Be uncomfortable.
No. Yeah,
So-
for sure.
But so that's
I can't imagine actually being invested in it though with a kid wrestling because I just feel like you would, as a girl, wrestling. I just feel like you would just be on the edge of your seat all the time and worried about him getting hurt and everything else. But it'd just be,
well,
I think it'd just be crazy.
tell you what, there's a couple junior high girls that do the hurting.
Yeah,
They-
yeah. I can't. The difference between
punish.
the big thing between the girls and boys I see is the things the girls can do. Like I've seen some girls that literally it's a bridge. Like when you're on your back, they can do the craziest things with their necks and bodies to get in added positions that boys just can't do
Yeah.
that. Is that everything for wrestling?
Yep.
Well, that's going to take us to football. Everyone likes to talk football, don't they?
Absolutely.
You start talking football the day after the last game. For me, it's just
Exactly.
high school
that's right.
football.
Yep.
High school football is the best. I just
Friday Night Lights.
yep.
Yep. We'll start with the 80s where you spent a lot of bench time, didn't you, Brian?
Sure did, Bob. Sure did.
I came in '82,
Yeah.
in October of '82. Right, I think I got to see. What year were you then? You were a
I'd have been a sophomore.
sophomore.
Yeah.
Got to see the last 2 games of the season, and was Tim Gomat your quarterback then?
He would have been he would have been a junior. He would have been the quarterback.
Yeah, and so who is that gigantic tight end out there? And you would wander across the middle, and Gomat would put the ball up, and big old hand would come up.
We had a pretty good team in '82. We were
It was a good team.
7-2, but didn't make the playoffs back then.
The playoffs are so screwed up. They still are, but yeah, you had several teams that and you had another great team in '84.
Yeah, my senior year we had a really good team.
Of course, John Casebolt brought the wishbone to Albia and had some nice backs back then, and probably threw the ball a lot more than regular wishbone teams.
Oh, absolutely. We probably had as many yards thrown as we did, and that's when you run into wishbone and you can do that. That's a pretty good deal. Pretty balanced.
And Tim and you set most of the passing records that held up until we had to throw the ball every time. In the last, that was like 4 or 5 years ago with the. Was it Blake Chance?
Blake would have been quarterback.
Oh my gosh, we threw 60 times a game.
Yep.
That's a lot.
It broke some of those records, but you had Tim Folkerts, I think, played a year of college ball, and
Kevin Garrison was a good ball player back in the
Garrison's
day.
a great ball player. Kevin Kroll, our longtime superintendent, he was a halfback linebacker for you.
Yep.
Yeah, some really fine.
Yeah, there were some good players in that time.
There really was.
I think of what I remember of the many linebackers you had that were just. They were
Paul
like
and Houston
dog on
were
a
good
bone.
linebackers.
Well, and then before
Not
me,
very
there was
big.
Sam Beard and Rich Noy,
Oh,
who were
sure.
about
I've
as
always
good
heard
as they
that.
got, that were not that big, but they were tough. Good ball players.
The Carter kid was a good linebacker, and there was another little bitty linebacker in your era, wasn't there? That
Mark Milligan was pretty good.
he was pretty stocky. Mark Murphy was in that era too, wasn't
Yeah,
he?
he was a defensive tackle. He would have been a senior when I was a junior. Yeah, we had good teams right through there.
And then one of the best teams I think I ever saw was it was the '88 team with the Summers, Lance and Jimmy Summers, and they were 4-5, but I don't think they'd lost a game more than by the touchdown.
And that's the crazy thing, because you just said they were 4 and 5, and that's like, so in the '80s you were playing 3A football.
Right.
Yep. And same thing like when I was going through in the late '90s into the 2000s, we got stuck in 3A football too. Now we got where I felt like we should be in that mid '90s range, and then now of course we're also in 2A, which is nice because that's where we should be.
Yeah,
Right.
we flipped from 3A to 2A in about 91, and Mike Murphy became our coach, and then we had tremendous success with, again, Matt Casebolt, the Buckingham brothers, Mitch Chance,
Curran.
Jay Curran.
Jay Curran was a heck of a running back.
Yep.
Kevin Pickerel would have been on that team.
Had some great. We had a great offensive line coach. His name was Kennedy. His last name was Kennedy, and he really brought tremendous line play, offensive line play, especially into the game. You talk about Pickerel,
And then,
terrific player.
then we ran into where we had a coach by the name of Tim Brunken, which honestly I was lucky enough to have him, and it was the most devastating. He left when I was on his 2000 team as a sophomore, and he told us he was leaving, which would have been my junior year. And you talk about a bunch of devastated kids, because he had that program. It was going to be turned around.
Yeah, he was a big weight room guy.
He had everybody lifting. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the big changes. I don't know how. Did you have a universal gym when you were?
We had
Chuck Nolan brought some free weight equipment in. I remember with his connections through Trophy Glove.
I can remember there was a little off the B gym up the steps. There was a little room that had one of those machines in there and a cold bath, one of them cold baths, and that was it. Then they moved it to the stage, and then they moved it into the industrial arts area.
Yeah, and now we have a brand new Atlanta Falcons equipment that Neil Mick helped us get. And
I
it's
didn't know that.
beautiful.
Didn't know that either.
Falcons, wow.
the Atlanta Falcons. I don't know where it's through Central College, and the weight guy at Central knew a guy who knew a guy, and we got that equipment in. But so that's been huge, our getting the weight room going.
Sure.
Gary Gravert got a team to the second team to the playoffs in 2007, That would have been with Zach Simpson, and Justin Huber would have been a junior running back on that team.
So that's probably right around the time we probably made the transition back to 2A, I would say.
It was still, yep.
So
they were in
because
2A.
really, because I always
And
kind of
we've
thought,
been 2A ever since, pretty
yeah,
much.
because Gravett kind of I feel like got shafted in a way because he was stuck in that 3A era, which
For a while.
he
yeah.
had some good teams and stuff, but there's just so much you can do when you're
Yeah,
small
the
2A
2000
school.
his 2002 team with Trevor Krall, Bobby Scott, Tim Hoskins he was really smart. Couldn't throw the ball worth a nickel, but he was a good. But
That was
first game of the
2002 2003 season. Yeah.
Bobby Scott got hurt, got a high ankle sprain. He went on to play at Wartburg. Terrific football player, and then Trevor Krall got hurt, and he was a 250-pound do-it-all lineman, and so that hurt them. But and then of course Jerry Staten came along, and he had the benefit of two things: 2A football, and just a ton of really good athletes, and people who were really committed to see the program flourish again.
Good parents involved with that.
Yep,
whole group
a lot of
too.
good parents, and again, the weight room happened under Jerry, and so from 2000, I've got those numbers somewhere. 2000. Well, okay, so 2010, he was 3-6. He was 1-8, 3-6. And then in 2010 it starts 7-3, 7-3, 8-2, 13-0. They lost a game in the Dome. I'm not sure that's correct. 11-2, 12-1, and then his last season he was 2-7. But three Unidome appearances, a couple of district titles,
Yep.
and just player after player that was.
And this I'm not taking anything away from Mr. Staten when I say this, but there was a group of athletes in there that I'm not so sure any of us couldn't have stepped out there and coached that group that came through.
And the key
Albia.
word was athletes because they were good in multiple sports.
Multiple sports for sure. So,
Well, yeah, right. They're all 3 and 4 sport athletes, and the Bear kid went on to be a all-conference player at
Northwest
West
Missouri.
State.
Northwest Missouri.
Yep, and he was our quarterback. And
safety, I believe.
one of the greatest games I ever saw in my life was when my high school, South Tama, came up to Albia to play to get to the Dome, and everybody who saw the game said this was the state championship game.
Yep.
And they were both, after the game, Carter Isley had a high ankle sprain. South Tama's first-team All-State halfback had a knee injury. Bear got hurt, our quarterback.
I was at that game, and it was a physical game. Biggest crowd I'd ever seen at Albia, too.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was just insane. But and we go up and play Mount Vernon, who had, of course, the Tristan Wirfs, who became an All-American and an All-Pro at Miami. And we were getting beat pretty bad, 21-0. Carter hadn't played, and he basically came and said, "I'm going in," and then I think we got beat 21-14.
Yeah, mounted a little comeback.
They mounted a huge comeback. So yeah.
Yeah, there were some fun years there.
Yep. So
Anything we're missing there?
No, I think we got her all covered.
we're going to be good this year. We've Coach Huber has got 2 4 and 5 years behind him, and I think they're going to be. I think they'll be competitive this year too. So
Good. So, before we go, now Abigail, she knew we were doing this episode. Our behind-the-scenes wizard back there knew we were doing this, so she handed me a paper and said she wanted to do a rapid fire for us 3. So I've got some questions that we have to answer separately, and we're going to see how far off we are.
Okay.
So question number 1 from Abigail: what was the best Albia women's sport? And we'll go with you first, Dave. What your pick is?
I'd be softball.
It's pretty easy.
And it'd be hard. I mean, the championship team of 2020, the 36 win team of 2003. That's easy.
Yeah. What about you?
Well, I was gone from 84 to 22, but I still tried to follow the sports, and I'd have to go with softball also. I mean, they've had consistent teams all through the years and some very good players.
I'd say it's hands down softball. That doesn't take away from any other sports. It's just we're notorious for our softball program. Next question. Best Albia men's sport. Dave?
Let's see.
A little bit tougher here.
I'd say basketball, just for the longevity of Kevin Archer, and then the teams that Brian played on early in the '80s with Tom Lee.
I would probably have to go, like I said, with wrestling. Just seems like they've been consistent. They've produced a lot of good wrestlers and conference titles and state champions.
Yeah, I think I would go with wrestling too. And basketball is a good answer also. I just feel like when I look at the whole picture, I feel like if we didn't win the conference, it seemed like we're always the top two, like for the longest period of time. So I would say my answer would be wrestling. Last question. So this is overall best. When you think of Albia as a sports town, what sport is it? And this is boys and girls. We can only say one sport.
Oh my gosh. I think I would say wrestling.
Well, I remember back in the 40s and 50s, they had really good water polo, but they discontinued that.
They
So
drained the
I'm
swamp.
probably going to go with, that's a tough one. That's a real tough one, that softball wrestling.
Yeah.
And, just to go, I'm going to go with softball. I think they've been consistent over the years again, and so I'm just going to go with softball and
Yeah, both
go from there.
Both great answers there too. I hate to be agreeing with you, Brian, because I don't ever agree with you.
I know, that's what I was thinking. Don't follow what I'm saying.
But the reason I'm saying softball is when I think of, we got a state title in softball.
Only state title in school history.
Yep. So I think, and so that's the big thing I'm
That's
thinking
the
of.
determining
but then
factor.
Also, we've just had so many just overall great teams that were top 3 in state or going to state. So I think softball, we're a softball town. So that's the rapid fire questions. Before we wrap this up, we do have, we do our real series, and we do one every month. And the one for July, we're going to mix it up a little bit. This is going to be all about Brian. And he's been on me the whole time. He's like, I want to be the actor on this. He's like, this is my show. I'm the best. I'm the reason people watch. So I agree with that. He's probably correct. So it's going to be grill talk with Brian. And what he's going to be doing, he's going to be giving us his life lessons all month long. So you're not going to want to miss this.
The reason Bob's doing this because he's afraid that I'm going to break off and go solo because I'm getting a lot of offers. So,
I thought maybe it was because you were a UNI grad, and most great minds come from UNI.
well,
We
and
all
that's
know
another
that.
good point, Dave. Good point. You know how that is.
Yeah.
Well, Dave, we sure appreciate you coming on.
It's been fun.
Yeah.
We'll do it again.
So remember, life is short, death is certain, and everything in between is worth talking about. So we'll see you next time.